Welcome back. Well, let's keep going. Katrina is designing a rectangular flag. She draws BD and BE so that they trisect angle ABC. If you know that CD is 24 inches, then what is the area of the shaded triangle, triangle BED? Well, part one is, what other angles or sides can you label using the given information? Well, I know that it's a rectangle, so that means that triangle, or that angle ABC is a right angle, which is 90 degrees. So if it's trisected, that means that each one of these little angles is 30 degrees. What else do I know? Well, I know, since it's a rectangle, that the side opposite of DC, so AB, is also 24 inches. So this is 24 inches. I know that this is a right angle, and this is a right angle. And ADC is also a right angle. Don't know if I need to write that right now, though. Well, if angle C is a right angle, and then DBC is 30 degrees, then that means that angle CDB has to be 60 degrees. So they all add up to 180. So we got a 30, 60, 90 triangle here. And by the same reasoning, we get a 60-degree angle here. And since AD is a straight line, then angle AEB and angle BED have to add up to 180. So that means that angle BED is 120 degrees. And then we know that angle EDB has to be 30 degrees for a couple of reasons, so that these three add up to 180, and so that these two add up to 90. So we've got a bunch of angles labeled now, and a couple of sides. And we could right now, we could use the 30, 60, 90 triangle information that we know, and let's go ahead and do that. So in a 30, 60, 90 triangle, we know that, let's use the big 30, 60, 90 first. We know that the hypotenuse is twice as long as the short leg. So that means that segment BD is twice as long as CD, so this one is 48. And then the long leg is equal to the short leg times the square root of 3. So BC is 24 times the square root of 3. So let's see, what do we know about the smaller 30, 60, 90 here? We have the long leg, so that means that the short leg is equal to the long leg divided by radical 3. So 24 divided by square root of 3. We don't like to have radicals on the bottom, so we're going to rationalize the denominator by multiplying by 1, but we're going to make our 1 look like square root of 3 over square root of 3. So on the top we get 24 times the square root of 3, and on the bottom, square root of 3 times the square root of 3 is the square root of 9, which is 3. And then 24 divided by 3 is 8. So this is 8 radical 3. So that means that AE is 8 radical 3. Well, if AE is 8 radical 3, and we know that BC is equal to AE plus ED, because they're opposite sides of a rectangle, So AD has to be congruent to BC. So let's see, BC is 24 times the square root of 3. AE is 8 square root of 3. So if we subtract 8 radical 3 from both sides, we get that ED, so 24 minus 8 is 16. So we get that ED is 16 radical 3. Let's see. There's two ways we can figure out what the length of BE is. It's 2 times the short leg because it's the hypotenuse of the 30, 60, 90. So 8 radical 3 times 2 is 16 radical 3. And then also the big gray triangle here is an isosceles triangle. So that means that since these base angles are congruent, that the opposite sides are also congruent. So 16 radical 3 for each one of those. So now we've got all the lengths and all the angles labeled. So now we're going to use the trig ratios for these 30... Oh wait, no, we already did that. So we did it using the 30, 60, 90 triangle rules, but you can also do it knowing what the sine of 30 degrees is and what the cosine of 30 degrees is. So for example, if we pretend we don't know what BD or BC are, we can use these trig functions to figure it out using the 30 degrees and the 60 degrees. We can figure out BD. We pick an angle, it doesn't matter which one we use. If we pick the 30-degree angle, then we would need to use sine because sine is opposite over hypotenuse. And if we picked the 60-degree angle, we would have to use cosine because cosine is adjacent over hypotenuse. And so I'll just kind of show you both ways of figuring out BD. And it doesn't matter which way you pick, whichever one seems more fun to you. So the sine of 30 degrees is the opposite, which is 24, over the hypotenuse, which is BD. So then I would multiply both sides by BD, and divide both sides by sine of 30. So divide by sine of 30. And I would get BD equals 24 divided by the sine of 30. Well, sine of 30 is 1/2. So that's 24 divided by 1/2. And dividing by 1/2 is the same as multiplying by 2. So 24 times 2 equals 48. And we would have gotten the same thing if we used cosine. If we use cosine, we would have to use the 60-degree angle so that it would be adjacent. So cosine of 60 degrees equals the adjacent, which is 24, over the hypotenuse that we were looking for, which is BD. So in this case, we would end up with BD is 24 divided by the cosine of 60 degrees, which is 1/2, and then you get the same thing. So now that we have all these lengths, we're going to use, well, it says to use the Pythagorean theorem to calculate the length of BD, but we've already done it using other methods. But let's just check and make sure. So the Pythagorean theorem says if you have a right triangle, then the leg squared plus the leg squared equals the hypotenuse squared. So 24 squared plus 24 times the square root of 3 squared. What does that equal? That equals BD squared. So to find BD, I would do the square root of these, right? So The square root of 24 squared. Let's see, what's 24 squared? 24 squared is 576. So 576 plus, and when we square this, this is going to be 576 times the square root of 3 squared is 3. So the square root of 576 plus 576 times 3 is 48. So does this method verify the length you found using trig ratios? Yes, it does. So now, what is the area of triangle BED? Show your work. Well, area of a triangle is 1/2 the base of the triangle times the height of the triangle, and the base and the height have to be perpendicular to each other. So, the base of the triangle is going to be 16 radical 3, and then the height would be perpendicular 24. So the base would be 16 radical 3, the height is 24, and it says to express our answer in radical form. Half of 16 is 8, so that's 8 radical 3 times 24. And then 8 times 24 is 192, so the area is 192 radical 3. Now you should take a little break, have a little rest, maybe have a snack, stretch a little, and then come back for part 3.